Okay, we are live on YouTube, ready when you are to start the work session.
All right. Calling the September 18, 2025 Stewart Historic Preservation Commission work session to order. All right. Do we need to take roll call?
Oh, we don't have to take a roll call
For the work session?
work session. I can confirm that you do have a quorum though.
We do need to confirm we have 1, 2, 3, 4, so we have a quorum, is that correct?
Yes.
That is correct.
And we're expecting still to see Commissioner Mashburn. Commissioner Benoit is not feeling well. We're one vacant, right? So we do.
So yeah, Todd is at choir practice.
All right. Let's get started. We have two work session topics tonight. One is the Hoban Park Restoration Project updates. That's kind of exciting. And then discussion of potential projects for the CLG grant for January 2026. If I can call your attention to the first page here, the Hoban Park Restoration Project updates by Director Stacy. If you could.
Oh, hello. Yay! We got the CLG grant because we haven't seen each other for some time. Last time we saw everybody was in April, and there were concerns about funding. However, the Office of History and Archaeology has confirmed for the fiscal year funding for this restoration project, and once again for the CLG grant 2026. The first report is due November 25th. Patty Relay is our grant administrator up in Anchorage, so her and I have been communicating. Most recent updates, well, we also have more updates to share, which is exciting. But 2 weeks ago, Mel and we met to discuss purchases and priorities and planting in Hoban Park. She had a donation of lilac bushes, and she will also be purchasing rose bushes. And going by Hoban Park today, those bushes have been planted in one section of Hoban Park that receives a lot of sunlight. So that is really exciting. I took photos of those. We do plan on meeting with the owners of Zudi's Cafe to discuss potentially making a natural border with some of the lilac bushes. Zudi's Cafe, they own that plot of land 8 feet out from the sidewalk. So we will have a sit-down meeting with them to make sure that we don't interrupt any of their business when we do begin reconstruction of the fences and of the cement. And they've been contacted and they're really excited to take part in the project as well. In addition, talking with Mel, she would like to get a mini dome for the fountainhead. That is possible. Also a new bench, but after talking to Commissioner Ward, we're looking into getting that bench donated. That will be the third bench that is in Hoban Park. I noted here that I needed assistance to get in contact with storm chasers. Carl is a very busy man, but thank you, Tongi, for setting up that meeting today that we had with him. Would you like me to continue, or would you like to discuss that?
No, we're just going to, no, thank you for, he seemed like he's very excited and into it, and put some thought into it. We learned some interesting historic stuff, but you being the historian, I'll let you talk about kind of what we discovered about the walls and the fencing and just some of the conversation. Thank you.
Yes. So I do have that image of the two images on the second page of our work session packet. You can see along Railway that one wall. Carl went in and we noticed that that wall had been capped. It had been restored. However, the wall on the west side of Hoban Park is the original concrete, and that is deteriorating fast. So when we were going over those walls, we noticed that there's holes, potential drain in the north wall, which I will double check with Public Works to see what exactly those holes are for. On the west wall, we noticed that the original wrought iron is still in place. And
Exciting.
yeah, really exciting. When they removed the fence, they legitimately just cut it off. And you can still see the original iron. What Carl said, that was probably the fence was there, they placed it, secured it, and then cemented around it. However, there's going to be a lot of corrosion from the inside, from the iron. In addition, there's a lot of water damage. The concrete is falling apart. I think each one of us held a piece from different areas, I noticed, which was not a good sign, but really good for then, I think it'll make his life easier for installing the fences. So the next steps is I will meet with Mel, and Carl will swing by to take a look at the fencing, because he's going to take it with him for the winter time, bend it, blast it, form the steel, repair it. But what we need now are measurements. We also need a slow panoramic video of that cement wall. We were also discussing a gate and a staircase coming off railway.
That was original, right? There was one there originally, so
Originally.
we'll try and replace that.
Really what we're doing is we're taking 3 different photos from 1920s, 1930s, and 1940s, and really kind of placing the bushes and the natural components to where they once were. We're putting the fencing back in, which was originally there. And
We talked a little about the fountain. You talked about the dome.
yes.
Okay, but we're not gonna, I remember some of the discussion we had was that sometimes it went higher, that whatever they plumbed. So are we gonna address the plumbing in the fountain at all? Or just leave it as is and that's fine?
Leave it as
It's pretty
is.
good right now, it seems like.
It's very good. I think the pressure that you can tell from the photos from 1940s and 50s, the water was going over 8 feet high.
Which might be too much.
That might be a little too much. But I think what she is planning, just to protect the pipe from water damage and also environmental damage, is to get just a dome 10-inch high at max, to cover and protect the piping towards.
And drain it in the winter, so.
Exactly.
Ms. Stacy, from a curator standpoint, apologies for
That's
saying
right,
something.
no.
Could you just give a little, for those who haven't been on this before, a brief overview of when Hoban Park was created, kind of when that wall was created? Maybe a little bit about when it came down and kind of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, so Hoban Park was listed on the National Register in 1979. And with that nomination form, stated on there is its period of historical significance. And it gives a timeline of how Hoban Park became such an influential space in this community. In 1918, it was just regular plot of grass. I was informing Carl that it was originally chicken wire fencing wrapped around. Those photos are quite interesting. But it wasn't until President Harding came in 1924 is when they put in the fencing and they made Hoban Park a communal spot. Over decades, it became the arcade park because of the arcade building right adjacent to it. It was also called Ladies Park because on Sunday afternoons, that's where the ladies would hang out. And you can read the Seward Daily Gateway of when the ladies were meeting at Hoban Park. It's quite interesting. And then it was named Hoban Park after Mayor Hoban, who was the mayor of Seward and also director of Chamber of Commerce and 5 million other different positions in Seward towards the end of the 30s and throughout the 40s during World War II. And 60s, 70s, it was there. I believe the fountain was restored at some point. But I might be mixing that history up with something else. But it was there, it was used, however, it was not brought back up to life and restored until the 90s, and also in the early 2000s when Historic Preservation Commission was established.
And the fencing then was discovered to be at Parks and Rec, right?
Yes. So the fencing was missing. So the fencing disappeared sometime between the 70s and the 90s. and it was just placed into Parks and Rec.
I think President Harding, didn't he give a speech from the passenger depot? So the park was like the center of the
It was for
reception
him
for
alone, yeah.
the only presidential visit until recently.
Yeah, because the railroad used to, Seward Dock had a long boardwalk that led straight into 4th Avenue. And what happened was you would go off the boardwalk and you can hop directly on the railroad. So the railroad used to be there, and if you hopped off, you could either go into the passenger depot or you can go into Hoban Park. Yeah.
So it was a real showpiece for town at that point in time.
Yes.
And the significance of it, not only is from an ornamental standpoint, but also it serves as a nice natural barrier. It looks good with the plants and so on that we'll be working on. And also just kind of a natural barrier to kind of set off the park from the rest, right? Maybe you can
Yes.
talk a little bit in very general terms about what the work is, what's going to be done when it's done.
So really what we're going to be doing is rehabilitating the fencing that was originally there.
How damaged is it? Have you seen it?
It's very corroded. I've only seen photos, but I could tell already that it's very bent. It's corroded. It's been sitting out on rotting pallets outside behind.
Oh, it's
Parks
been
and Rec.
outside.
It was outside for years. And then when, from Mel's perspective, she said she remembers when they brought in the fencing. And so that is with the ornamental of it, because it has beautiful fleur-de-lis accents with it. And
Art Deco.
you can see a great example in the
Art
museum. Yes, Art Deco. And then for a natural standpoint, it was always lilac and rose bushes. Also, there was a natural border of trees that blocked it off between the park and the railroad. And then it was lined with, what's the word? I'm not a gardener. Wooden, it was really pretty wooden,
Lattice?
lattice, thank you. That's the term I'm looking
Lattice
for.
work.
Yes.
So when it's done, which is September 2026 is our timeline, we'll have the fencing restored as well as possibly lilacs and/or roses installed at that time as well too, right?
Correct. And we've already had a new layer of lilac bushes planted,
That's
because
very-
that was from a wonderful donation. Word's getting out and people are wanting to donate their rose bushes.
That's
and
very
lilacs.
exciting, and then another bench, and it'll become a place for people to come sit and repose, and kind of like back in the day, so it'll be a really nice set-off there by the
And we
water,
had
by
a
the Sea Life
beautiful
Center.
summer this past year, and I would always walk by and you just see many people, many of the tourists like to sit there, soak in the sun.
Project scope is that fencing is sitting at Parks and Rec. It will come over to Carl at Storm Chasers, and it will be straightened, anti-corroded, recoated, all that. And then since it was just kind of cut off, there'll be some welding and things that need to happen for it to come back together.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I encourage public interest and those who have questions to find out more about it. It's more complicated than it sounds. It's not just like building a weekend fence, but pretty excited about
Pass
it.
these around for you, Art and Donna to see what the.
Carl, he indicated that we may, in some of that, have to go into the concrete, remove the, what's in there, because that's going to be real corroded. So it's not just like gluing it on. We may have to do some restoration to the concrete.
Oh, yes. And he also mentioned that we're gonna have to go into the garden that concrete blocks off, which is a great opportunity to have Alaska Sea Life Center. They own that bit of land. They can come with us to have a good consultation meeting. They are aware of this project. And we'll have representatives from them, along with Zudi's Cafe, so everybody is involved in.
And part of that is because that's the wall that's real damaged.
Yes,
And the drainage from that planter. So we may have to move some plants, dig in there just to restore the concrete, then put the plants back. So that's the involvement with the Sea Life Center. That wall is a little more damaged than I think we thought was readily apparent. And we haven't even been able to move the moss off yet. So Carl sort of said if we move the moss, that might be holding it together.
It was very crumbly.
Yeah.
When we saw it, yeah.
If the public wanted to see these original pictures, is there some place that we can load those so that they can be seen, that someone can come see what this fencing kind of looks like?
I think
That's
probably
a
the
lot more
best
than I
way
thought we had.
is, I know, I thought the exact same.
Wow, that's a lot of fencing.
Would probably to have the public email me directly. My email's directly on the
You
website,
can see this.
cityofseward.net,
You wanna see it, go to the library.
through the library museum department.
Wonderful.
Fencing in the library.
Great meeting, very exciting. Again, September 2026 is the timeline. There'll be a further timeline made available as we go through these meetings. Thank you very much for your report. Shall we also talk about potential projects for CLG grant for January 2026? Please.
Pick me, she says.
Just because I know Commissioner Mashlin is singing his heart out. I had a great discussion with him, and we walked walked to St. Peter's, because the Episcopal Diocese Bishop was in town.
Yeah.
Yes,
You were?
and I met him, and he was a hoot and a half. I loved talking with him. But as we're talking about preservation efforts for that building, really the main purpose was like, all of us agreed the wood is falling apart. And what's causing the wood to fall apart is the water that is constantly exposed to. This is where I turn to you all, as some of you are owners of historic houses. What do you all know about guttering systems? Because I think instead of contacting contractors and doing a 5-year temporary replacement of wood, whether it be wooden shingles, the buttresses, we need to stop the water from going back onto the wood.
We tell you about gutter systems that it will require a gutter expert, and that the only gutter system still in the cable house right now is a wooden gutter that's 120 years old. I put plastic ones up, and they all came down the first season.
We put guttering on our house, but Eric took care of that, and I have no idea who he talked to. I can look through my files, plus I have a couple of local handymen that I can talk to see if they know of anybody, but I think we want a professional, somebody a specialist. We had somebody that was recommended to us to put the guttering on our
On the
house.
roof and what it is, and
It was
whether the
very
snow will slide off and take those gutters
And I
down.
think the individual came from Soldotna. I will look through our files and see what we have, but you know whom I also know is Rudy, because he worked on our house when Eric was alive, and he may know who installed it. Harmon helped us with the outside, but we had some drainage issues around the basement, just like St. Peter's, and so Eric put a guttering system in, but again, he handled it, I didn't. So I'll see if I can find it, but Rudy, a friend of ours, may know who did it.
Okay.
But it was a specialist, I do know that.
It was it's a little rental house, kind of across from the Liberty Theater, that vacant lot, but there's a contractor out of Soldotna replaced that roof and the guttering system this summer,
So, yeah,
and did a bang-up job.
so if we can figure out who that is, I'm sure
Yeah.
it's probably I don't think there's anybody in Seward that specializes in gutters.
Okay.
And with the awkward angles with St. Peter's, we're probably going to need somebody who knows guttering. And it's real interesting because you can stand there by St. Peter's and you can watch the water come off the roof, and because it's been mounded up, water hits the top of that. You can see the water line, the drip line, and half the water goes down the driveway, the other half goes right into the building.
And it goes directly into the concrete foundation.
Right, and all the wood, that whole side is rotted. But you can see it. I've actually stood there, because I'm just up the street. I've stood there and watched the water run into the building. So,
So I think,
it needs to be graded, but a guttering system is clearly something that's needed.
The other guy that would be good would be Rudy's boss, Matt Genovese.
Yeah,
You know,
and if they keep, that would be outstanding.
Yeah,
That would be outstanding.
Thank you.
yeah, those guys are
They're real good.
very good.
They worked on our house too.
Yeah.
Because with, following any section 106, historic preservation, guttering systems are fine. They would have it white to match the roofing, so we should be good to go. Also, I don't own a house. How much would you all say? Guttering system
I can't
costs?
remember what we paid.
It depends what,
Depends on the work, and I think with the certain angling and everything.
plastic systems done anywhere was close to $10,000.
I was gonna say
Once you get
11.
metal or something, actually mine are aluminum. Yeah,
Okay.
you're probably talking easily 10,000.
Yeah, I was,
10,
the
15,000.
number that came into my mind that we paid was
Yeah,
11,000.
it's $10,000 to $15,000 probably. And so the question will come up as well too. So the proposal is for us to do a CLG grant for St. Peter's with support from the community or from the church.
Yeah.
And I
That's my
don't think,
proposal.
I don't think that would be hard to get all of that above.
Yeah, that needs to be the first step.
Is that, I told you, I'm not a homeowner.
No, but
I think that
but-
might be that's what the bishop suggested.
Yeah, but there was,
Away from
we,
the building.
Yeah.
I've talked about that in the past. I actually talked to Phil Zimmerman, and he came over and looked at the building. And we talked about a guttering system. I think at this point, it's pretty clear that any repair, the church will be in the same position in 10 years if we don't look at a protective system. It's just the way the thing is designed. And I do go there at Sunday services, and I'm always concerned when Todd goes in to ring the bell and I want him to come back out. If I hear a thud, then I'm calling the police, calling the ambulance, because the building is,
Can we do a little research just to make sure that from a CLG standpoint, what part has to be written by St. Peter's or their congregation or support versus
Yeah.
us as the city? Says we have the precedence of Brown and Hawkins, we were able to help them, but they wrote their actual grant. We just indicated support for it. So
Okay.
they were the ones that actually applied for the CLG grant, the city offered support.
Okay.
So we have to specify whether we're able to write a CLG grant or whether it's them writing a CLG grant. We want to make sure that we don't get astride of that. Second thing is, I'm sure there'll be a fundraising component, and I'm sure that there'll be people who will want to fundraise, and we are not as a commission allowed to fundraise. So
I would
we
have
have
to
to be
be
careful
St.
not to step into that.
yep,
And then we'll be
absolutely.
in good shape. And as long as we have the support of the city, whatever it is we choose to do, it's fine, but we got to make sure that we don't.
But we want to follow the rules.
Yeah. I know that Maria Lewis is, she moved to Australia, so we don't have her. But Patty Relay, who is our current grants administrator, she is going to be taking in that role for any CLG coordination, us following rules and protocol. So I'll how about research further into the guttering system. I can put it on our agenda for next meeting and talk to Patty as well.
Absolutely. It will also require at some point city council involvement. They had to make approval of it, so we want to make sure that we know that.
Great.
An indication of what they're leaning before we get too far down the road.
Awesome. And that's the only thing
But I think you'll
I...
have support, I'm guessing, from the community.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be an issue, because I've heard so many people mention the condition of St. Peter's.
Any other 2026 CLG grant?
What about a museum? I'm kidding.
Your $5 million museum, is that the one you're talking about?
I like it. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions, comments, discussion from commissioners for our work session? We've reached our 2 items and discussed those thoroughly. Can I make a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Okay.
Thank you. A motion to adjourn, we need
We
a...
convene at,
Do we need an agreement to that? No?
No agreement.
Adjourning the meeting at 5:56 PM.